Now, if you were offered the chance to make substantial savings on your energy bill without having to spend any money up front, you'd do it, wouldn't you? Well, actually, you probably wouldn't. That's the irresistible conclusion from the massively underwhelming number of people who signed up to the government's Green Deal. No less a figure than Nick Clegg described it as one of the most important achievements of any government. But barely 1,000 households have signed up for it, and where the scheme was meant to save households money, it's actually ended up saving them nothing much at all. And as Andy Verity's found out, all the political uncertainty about green levies threatens thousands of jobs.
It was billed as the largest and most ambitious home improvement programme our country has seen since the Second World War, not to mention the most comprehensive energy-saving plan in the world. Deja vu, anyone?
Households up and down the country are facing really high fuel prices. We've got to do something, and what we are doing is highlighting the Green Deal, one of the most ambitious projects that any government has launched in a long, long time.
The Green Deal went live 11 months ago, but it's starting to look like a party no one wants to go to. Amid the fury about bills, households are still blowing £140 a year heating the open air in old, badly insulated houses. So what if they could borrow money to get insulation and make the repayments out of savings on their bill? Enter the Green Deal. What's that? It's a revolutionary programme, according to the government, which lets you do your loft, your wall insulation, your new boiler, and pay nothing for it up front. The rule is that the energy efficiency measures will pay for themselves over 25 years in savings on your bill, so you won't have to pay anything. Sounds like the ideal deal, doesn't it, in these times of high energy bills? So, why have so few people taken it up? Ahead of its launch in January, the government projected that 130,000 Green Deals would get signed this year. The minister responsible, Greg Barker, said back in March that he wouldn't be sleeping if less than 10,000 signed up. But 11 months in, just over 1,000 people have signed up to the scheme, around 1% of what was expected. And of those, just 219 have had the work done.
I think today this has been a tragic and embarrassing failure. Consumers are crying out for some help with their energy bills, and here is the policy that could deliver it, and yet nobody's taking it up.
What intrigues me about the Green Deal is that although barely 1,000 people have signed up to it, more than 100,000 have had their assessments done. Why aren't they following through? There seems to be some sort of blockage in the Green Deal pipeline. What is it? Mike Walker, himself an energy assessor, thought his cold Victorian walls could use a bit of warming up. He invited a Green Deal assessor to his home and wasn't exactly impressed.
Even with a basic bit of knowledge, you can tell that this is solid brick. It does not contain a cavity.
How?
Because you have a long section of brick and a short section of brick, it means that the bricks are laid like that. So it's solid all the way through, so there is no cavity. Yeah, so following the first assessment, the first recommendation they came up with was, would you like cavity wall insulation? And well, we don't have cavity walls, so I'm sorry. The EPC then showed, yes, they've actually recorded it as cavity walls. And we don't have them.
He got another assessment, and another with a different firm, and another, all of them wrong. After his 6th wrong assessment, he gave up in despair.
The last attempt at the EPC, they failed to pick up on the fact that we've got a wood-burning stove.
An energy assessor missed that?
Yep.
But it's not just incompetent assessors and a complicated process. Research released today shows just how little the Green Deal saves you. Take a typical household dual-fuel bill, £1,400 a year. The insulation would bring your bill down to £1,220, but then the repayments on the loan at 8% interest would bump it right back up to where it was, saving you nothing. If instead the loans were interest-free, the repayments would be far smaller. You'd save £136 a year.
The problem is actually in what consumers are being offered in terms of this product. You can go through the hassle of installing these energy efficiency measures with one of these Green Deal loans that are now provided, and the result is that your bill doesn't go down at all. The reason being that you're making all of these loan repayments, and that negates the bill savings you could achieve. By underwriting the cost of loans, they could slash the interest rate to 0%, which would make bill savings of over £130 available to households.
Energy firms and insulation providers set up a finance company to arrange the loans with £244 million to lend. So far, it's lent less than £6 million.
Where they are being sold, they're working as intended. People are taking out whole home treatments of their house. They're being able to borrow loans of about £5,000 at an APR of 8%, and the whole thing is working well. We can service the plan, so on and so forth. That bit is working. It's going to take time for it to grow.
Here's the problem with the Green Deal. If you've got equity in your home, you can just top up your mortgage and get a cheaper loan to do the work. If you're poor, you might want it because you can't get a loan elsewhere, but then you're probably eligible for free help. And if you're in the middle, well, you're not going to see much of a saving on your bill anyway. The man who was Energy Secretary when the Green Deal was announced says it was always obvious home buyers needed a much bigger incentive to do their walls and lofts at the moment they bought the house, stamp duty relief. But the Treasury blocked it.
The essential problem has been the Treasury's reluctance, and particularly George Osborne's reluctance, to have any sort of incentive to make it happen. I just don't understand it, because ideologically he's perfectly prepared, for example, to introduce tax relief to help with gas fracking, but he's not prepared to introduce a tax relief, a stamp duty relief, to help with energy saving.
Construction firms that agreed to provide the Green Deal invested heavily ahead of its launch and retrained fitters to do the solid wall insulation the government wanted. Now, with the failure of the Green Deal, one big player, Carillion, had to let 1,000 workers go. And now they face political uncertainty about another insulation scheme, the Energy Company Obligation, or ECO.
Energy companies, in many senses quite understandably, are waiting and seeing what the Chancellor is going to stand up and say in his autumn statement about this. Therefore, they're not looking to commit to any new contracts, to commit to energy efficiency installations in the new year, but we're also now hearing stories of actually companies cancelling existing contracts. So people have been gearing up to deliver for several months now significant numbers of energy efficiency installations that are now being pulled, and people are going to lose their jobs on the back of it.
With parties competing for the bill payers' vote, the government's public doubts about green levies are leading the companies involved to put their plans on hold. They hope the uncertainty will end with the Chancellor's autumn statement. Thousands of jobs depend on it.
Well, Greg Barker is the Climate Change Minister. Now, you said in March you wouldn't be sleeping at night if there weren't 10,000 people signed up to this by the end of the year. Would you like some sleeping pills?
No, I tell you what is slightly misleading about that film is it's focused exclusively on finance, which we identified at the start of the Green Deal as the biggest barrier to people putting in insulation measures. But the fact of the matter is, which they did actually mention in your film, over 100,000 people have had a Green Deal assessment.
Yes.
And contrary to what your reporter found, I'm not doubting that some of them haven't been perfect or troublesome, but actually our evidence is that the overwhelming majority of the people, that 100,000 or more who've had a Green Deal assessment, are not only really pleased with their assessment, they're actually taking action to put in the measures that are recommended. So, Jeremy, would you tell me, is the measure of success for me as an energy minister and climate change minister, is the measure of success how many finance plans I sell, or is it how many energy efficiency improvements are actually installed in homes like these? You judged it
yourself. 10,000 by the end of this year, and you wouldn't be sleeping at night if it was less than that.
Yeah, but I didn't estimate. What I didn't reckon with, and I'm not satisfied with 1,000.
Okay,
of course,
tell us how many Green Deal installations there have been.
But we reckon something in the region of 80,000 measures have been installed. Because
how many houses have had a Green Deal installation?
We reckon that something in the region of 80,000. We don't know.
80,000.
Let me explain it to you. Your piece focused exclusively on the people who are taking up Green Deal finance. Now, in the long term, that's going to be really important, because we do know that being able to afford these measures is a key barrier to people being able to put them in. Let me finish. But the first 100,000 or so people who have had a Green Deal assessment, over 80% have said that they've already put in measures, or they're currently putting in measures, or they intend to install measures.
What do you mean,
but
then,
they're
is that 80,000 people have had their homes modified in some way? You do not mean they've had a Green Deal installation, because the total number of them is, what, 219?
No. You're talking about finance, Jeremy. Again, you're confusing the method of payment.
Green Deal seems to be clearly about finance.
There's more to the Green Deal than finance. The Green Deal is first and foremost about having a Green Deal assessment where someone comes and spends several hours in your home, sits down around the kitchen table and takes you through the measures that will help you cut your energy bill. And that is proving really popular. And when they do that...
100,000 people have had their homes assessed.
More than that now. More than that. It was over 100,000 in October.
You say about 80,000 of them had done something to the house as a consequence of that.
We know that over 80% of the people who have been assessed have told us that they have either already installed measures, or they're going to install measures, or they're currently installing measures.
So they're not taking up your finance arrangements?
But what I'm saying to you, Jeremy...
So there's something wrong with them, isn't there?
No, there's not something wrong with them. What they're saying is...
Well, if someone offers you free money, what do you do?
It's not free money.
Exactly.
It's not
at all free money, is it?
No, of course it's not.
It's 8% interest, isn't it?
It is, which actually...
Which is very expensive.
It's not very expensive. Could you find 20-year... finance anywhere on the high street at 8%?
Have you yourself taken out a Green Deal financial arrangement?
No, I haven't, because I've already improved my home. But the fact... But, Jeremy, you asked me about the finance. Could you get 8% for 20 years anywhere on the high street?
Well, all I can say is that the total number of people who've done so is 219. Isn't that correct?
Over 1,000 people are now in the system.
1,000
but I will agree with you this.
Hang on. We've now gone from 100,000 to 1,000.
No. Again, Jeremy, you're confused.
No, I'm not.
You are. You're confusing financing.
100,000 people have had their homes looked at.
Yep.
That's common ground between us.
And over 80% of them...
You say 80% of them have
installed measures or are installing measures. That is
1,000 people have signed up to the Green Deal financial arrangement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right, and
I agree, that's a low number.
219 have completed. Is that correct?
It was a couple of months ago when the last batch of statistics were...
So 219.
Yeah,
219. This is a failure.
No, this is a really bizarre way of looking. If I was selling motor cars and actually 100,000 cars had gone out of the showroom, but we'd only sold 1,000 of them on finance plans, would you say that's a failure of selling motor cars? No, you'd say you're not selling many finance plans. Now,
I agree. Would say if I'd held it as the biggest programme of housing improvement since the Second World War, and I expected 10,000 people to be on it by the end of the year, I think I might consider I'd failed.
Firstly, it's a 20-year programme. And what we're doing is something that no one's tried before. It's a completely novel market, and there are a number of improvements that we need to make. Let's be absolutely clear. I'm not saying the Green Deal's perfect. I'm not saying that we've got to come forward with further improvements and iterations now that we're live, and we're listening carefully to what the supply chain are telling us. We're making some may seem quite technical and small adjustments, but in actual fact they make a big difference to the way in which it works. For example, people will be able to do a Green Deal in a day. At the moment, it takes a couple of visits. That's holding it back. Come the new year, they'll be able to do a Green Deal in a day. We're looking at ways in which we can cut through some of the paperwork to make it much easier for people to get a Green Deal. So there are certainly things that we can do to improve it, and over time, next year, you're going to see an increasing number of people coming into the market to offer the Green Deal. The reality is the supply chain, the people offering the Green Deal, particularly the big 6 energy companies, have been very cautious in offering this product, but they're going to step up the game. And what's really important, I think what the game changer is going to be, is next year we're going to start offering it street by street on a community basis, on an area basis. We've had a really good response to our community programme, and when we start offering Green Deal on a street by street, that's when you get the real take-up. So
why did you draft it so badly?
Why did we draft it so badly? I don't think we did. We did draft it badly.
Well,
I'm not saying it's perfect.
You're having to make some huge changes to it.
Which huge changes are we making?
Well, for example, the whole street idea you've just mentioned, which seems to me, or many
that wasn't
people...
in the drafting. That's simply that we go in. That comes in the next phase. That doesn't change any drafting. We have running the competition. We've now had the applications in. We've been overwhelmed by a really positive response from big metropolitan councils up and down the country, keen to participate. Manchester, Leeds, Birmingham, Bristol, keen to participate in the Green Deal and offer it on a street-by-street basis. I've always said that it's the street-by-street, area-based rollout of the Green Deal that's really going to put rockets underneath it. And I think that's right. Now, I think that's when the finance is going to be important, because what we really want to do now is take the subsidised offer, the ECO, which over 250,000 homes have had that this year, and we want to marry it with the Green Deal, so you get a much more joined-up offer.
Should have been joined up in the first place, shouldn't it?
Well, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and this is a novel product. And what the important thing is, we are improving it as we go, and we will be announcing more incentives. As Chris said, Chris, you know, I've got a lot of respect for Chris Hoon. You know, we work together very well, but he's wrong. George Osborne has given us £200 million. We haven't yet deployed that money. Come next year, we will see steady growth in the Green Deal, which is a 20-year programme. Don't write it off yet.
Minister, thank you.